Greetings, YouTube. It's 2091 Rivera Israel here. Now, I know it's early in the morning, and I don't expect anybody to watch this stream, so I'll make this as quick as possible. What I was going to do is I was going to discuss pretty much a new project that's currently in the making. One that was supposed to bring back an old version of my series long ago, long before Loud House. So basically, many years ago, I managed to create an actual series known as Godzilla Team. Now, many of you who grew up watching my channel already know that Godzilla Team used to be the flagship of my channel before I was forced to abandon it. Now, tragically, it's been untouched. I've tried so many times to revive it for over several years. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out due to the lack of help. Sure, I have Uma Pirate Girl, who volunteered in 2018, which, believe it or not, Godzilla Team was actually the start of her career, which elevated her career. But unfortunately, it was not enough to save the series. And since 2018, it's been literally untouched. Now, before a long time ago, a fan of mine, actually came into my YouTube channel and wanted to pretty much convert my Godzilla team and merge it with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I know, crazy, right? Back then, I thought this guy was crazy because back then in 2012, I had no idea Friendship is Magic's existence. So pretty much, I decided to, say no at first because I thought back then he was talking about the 80s My Little Pony. When I actually saw Friendship is Magic for the first time in 2012, I was like, no, maybe this won't be that bad. I guess I could accept this. And so I've since then accepted it. Problem is that during that time period, I literally, and I repeat, literally had so much help at the time. I actually had a group that I created something known as the Project, which was like an organization that makes all these creative concepts. Unfortunately, it was not to be.
Trust me, not just not just
Give me a second.
channel.
I'm just trying to hang on, everybody. I'll be right back. I just want to listen to a few Okay, that's been taken care of. Sorry about that, everybody. I was just talking with somebody on Instagram. Anyway, as I was stating, Godzilla Team was one of the biggest flagships of my entire YouTube channel. Now, I understand a lot of you who are new here who started subscribing probably don't even know what I'm talking about, mainly because you're so used to seeing the Loud House all the time on my YouTube channel. Well, back then, Godzilla Team used to be the flagship, just like the Loud House is today. When I actually created Godzilla Team, it was actually first. It began first in 2007 during my early years on YouTube. And at the time period when I was 18, going up to when I was 17, going to 18 and 19, I used to make many videos from at the time of Godzilla Team, which, believe it or not, sparked a huge fandom and led to the and led to the invention of Godzilla OCs, which is not gonna lie, back then, Godzilla related OCs were never made before I made Rivera. He was like considered the first OC ever created. And what happened was is that during this occasion, huh? And I've only been here since 2020, and he's told me a shit ton of stories. Yeah, that's true, Nate. That is true indeed. Hang on, just give me a second. Uh, Hang on, I will give you the link so you could join. And no, I wasn't talking to you guys. I was talking to somebody on Instagram who wants to see this. It, Shit, give me a minute. I'm sorry, guys, that this is taking a while. Just there we go. Oh shit, I'm about to post to the wrong person. Okay, here we go. Okay, now that that's done, now I could go back to talking. So basically, like I stated, back then there were no such things as Godzilla OCs. Now I know a lot of you probably don't care about this stuff, but many times ago, Godzilla OCs like Rivera, he was the first official OC. As a matter of fact, Rivera dates back all the way to 2006. So during the time period when I first created it, I first began to pose as Rivera in Facebook. And it led to so many people being inspired to creating so many Godzilla OCs. I used to also show them on YouTube since the time of 2008. Since then, it eventually led to the creation of the OC Israel that was created by a friend of mine back in the day known as Israel Willoughby. He created Israel. Unfortunately, I don't know where he is today. I mean, I still am in contact with him, but he's moved on from Godzilla over the years. I pretty much have the rights to his OC now because I'm the only one that uses it now. But back then, he actually used to do videos on collab with me at the time, with Rivera and Israel constantly, either battling one another or just dicking around like always. So during that, hang on, give me a second, guys. I have to reply to someone on Instagram again. Okay, guys, I'm back again. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I have been talking to you when I'm talking to someone on Instagram at the same time. But anyway, during the occasions after Israel was born, because before it was just Rivera, now it's Israel, and now you got so many OCs, and I'm not kidding, so many OCs over the decades. Matt Cox is one, Kristen Jonathan's another one. So many of these OCs started to pop up all over the world, and some as far as Japan. Even Japan was getting inspired by this. But as time progressed, I eventually led to the creation of Godzilla Team in 2011, which was on June 24th. The problem was is that back then nobody was helping me. I had to literally do everything on my own, from voice acting, so on and so forth. But as time progressed, I was able to conduct one full season of Godzilla Team in 2011. Unfortunately, I had to cancel the show tragically. And that was because of the lack of help and, all the stress I was getting back then. Now, I tried at some point to resurrect the series and I tried to bring it up again in 2018. It didn't work. I was able to get 2 episodes in. 2 episodes. That was it. I couldn't do anything more. So eventually, Godzilla Team got scrapped again. And since then, it's been left untouched, collecting dust since 2018. During the occasions, a fan of my series, known as Legendary Werewolf 206, I don't know where he is today, but tragically, I don't think he will ever show up. Because he disappeared off the internet sometime in 2015. But back then, he came up with the idea of New Godzilla Team, the Seven Seals, and that was that crossover with Friendship is Magic that I told you about. That was the one where I didn't agree with at first, but then after seeing the show, I decided to give it a chance. So back then, I used to have people that helped me. And Nate Animates, if he was here, he could even say that because he actually witnessed a lot of my old videos back in the day. And he actually was willing to admit that back then I had a lot of help, but I was also used a lot also back in the day too. To the point that I literally, and I repeat, literally couldn't do anything without, pretty much getting depressed or anything else. So basically, as punishment out of all of this, that everything I've tried to do to make this good, to give you guys some entertainment and everything else, everything started to go downhill. There were a lot of people that were willing to help out, and to them, I take my hat off and I commend them for that. Some of these people I even made tributes to, but they disappeared. 2013 was the year that New Godzilla Team died. Only one animation was ever made from New Godzilla Team, and it's still on YouTube to this very day if you ever want to see it. A YouTuber by the name of Sponzilla Final Wars actually created an animation that was set to represent the Crystal Empire disaster of 2037. Unfortunately, no other animation was made. It's just that one. So basically, back then, SFM wasn't really a thing at the time. So, yes, that is true, Nate. It does suck that I had to delete, but I had to do it because even if I kept them up, they would have been reused content. And some of the episodes were even blocked worldwide. And that is true. When I used to make Godzilla Team back in the day, it was blocked worldwide. YouTube was constantly harassing me over that. And this shit has been happening since 2011 and they're still doing it today. So basically, that's another reason why I had to let Godzilla Team go. Well, not let it go, but stop producing episodes because exactly, Nate. I had to use the footage from the actual movies because there was no 3D animations at the time. In 2011 and everything else, SFM wasn't a thing at the time. So yeah, a lot of things were different at the time period. But I can say this, during the occasions, I did not entirely abandon Godzilla Team altogether. Even though I stopped in because I did attempt to try and revive the series again in 2018. I managed to get 2 episodes done, but once again, hardships prevented it, and the lack of help stopped me from doing it. Back then, I literally had to voice everything. Everything. Nobody even volunteered to voice because I didn't know Uma Pirate Girl at the time. And as a matter of fact, Godzilla Team is a huge part of her childhood. She even mentioned one time that Godzilla Team motivated her when she was 12 to 13 years old. And she literally dreamed of voicing the characters, which she finally got her wish. Yeah, that's fine, Nate. Don't worry about that. But yeah, she actually got her wish because she actually mustered up because she actually was able to communicate with me at the time. And she was also able to voice Mothra in Monstrous Turn. That was the first time that Godzilla Team was ever able to have another actor. Because back then I was doing everything. I was voicing everything, including the females. I know, weird. But that's basically all I had. No one would help me. I had to do everything on my own. So after that occurred, eventually I decided a long time ago because I stopped watching Friendship is Magic in 2013 because it was in 2013 when the show started to go downhill. And I'm actually glad I did stop watching it because I heard that the show was terrible the way it ended. Nobody liked it. So I could say this for with a hint of confidence. During this occasion, I am attempting to try and bring back Godzilla Team back, but I have to. But it looks like the only way I can do this is I'm gonna have to do it through either SFM, Source Filmmaker, or Gary's Mod. Now I don't know if it's possible to do that because one, I have no experience to animate on SFM or Gary's Mod. So learning SFM is trying to figure out it's trying to decipher an alien hieroglyph. It's very freaking hard and difficult to do, and it gets frustrating when you see all these people who could do it within the blink of an eye, and it looks like it's really on TV. Right now, Nate animates, and basically, since he's here, we're planning. Well, this is actually going to be the first Godzilla team related project that Nate animates is actually joining me on. Back then, he was usually helping me mostly with Galaxy Racers, another series I created a long time ago, and pretty much gave Nate the rights to Galaxy Racers back then. During that occasion, I was able to take a look at a couple of SFM videos, and it brought me back to New Godzilla Team, the Seven Seals. The only thing of Godzilla Team now is the wiki fandom. And yes, there is a wiki fandom. Nate Animates even knows about it. It's been up since 2012. It's still up to this very day. And basically, unfortunately, The only way I was able to keep Godzilla Team alive is through words. I couldn't do it through animation. No matter how many times I tried, it was either blocked worldwide, taken down completely, or I would be penalized. So the best thing that I was able to do was keep it alive through Wiki Fandom. And the Wiki Fandom basically is right over here. Give me a minute while sometimes Brave likes to be an ass. But yeah, this is the Wiki Fandom right here. It's been around for a long time. So as you can see here, you'll notice that each of the Godzillas have their name. Like here's Showa right here. Believe it or not, this is the 1954 Godzilla, but you're probably saying that's impossible because that's the Final Wars version. Yes, it is the Final Wars version. The Final Wars version of Godzilla was 1954 Godzilla when he was young. So the same thing with Rivera. Rivera, pretty much right here, if you actually take a good look at him, you'll notice that it's the Tokyo SOS Godzilla. But that's because this is Rivera when he was in his 30s and 40s at the time. He was young at the time. It wasn't until he was actually it wasn't until he was actually in, it wasn't until basically the 2030s to the 40s, excuse me, the late 2020s when he actually became this. This is Rivera when he was old. And to all of you who are wondering, he actually showed up. The date of births of each member of Godzilla team is very easy to decipher. Showa was born, which is AKA the real Godzilla, the one that you all know about. Showa was actually the firstborn, November 3rd, 1954. And to those of you who don't know, November 3rd, 1954 was the year and the month that Godzilla came into existence. In real life, that's where the movie began, November 3rd, 1954. Rivera came in second, August 2nd, 1956. Israel came in third in in 1962. Now his birth month, I don't remember. I gotta actually look at it, but give me a minute. So Israel, this is Israel right here. And to all of you who don't know, Israel's the Heisei Godzilla, the one from one from 89 all the way to 95. And his birth was April 3rd, 1962. He's known as the youngest out of the team. And the reason why is because he was actually known to have been one of the biggest, and I repeat, biggest, strongest versions of the movies at the time. You had Israel. Now, you did have Godzilla, who was the strongest since 1954 all the way to 1986. But at the time period, the whole roles were supposed to be literally reversed. Israel was supposed to be the Millennium Godzilla, while Rivera was supposed to be the Heisei. But unfortunately, it never came to pass. In the time of the 90s, all the way to the 80s, Rivera suffered a bad illness and an injury, which forced him not to become the Heisei. He was supposed to be the Heisei because he was the second born and the second oldest. But because of an accident that occurred in Toho sets, Rivera was unfortunately unable to act, and it wouldn't be until 1999 when he would finally hit the screen. So unfortunately, Israel had to take over in Rivera's place, and he was granted the title of Heisei, while Rivera had to be titled the Millennium Godzilla. So unfortunately, Israel, who was supposed to be the Millennium Godzilla, would never get that title because of an accident that happened in the 80s. So during the occasions, that's basically how everything became the situation. And that's why Rivera never showed up in movies in the 80s. So during the occasion, when Rivera actually was actually injured because during the time, Rivera was actually supposed to be the monster in Godzilla Final Wars. But another accident happened at that time period. One that almost killed Rivera. And basically, during the time of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in 2003, no, excuse me, wait, no, yeah, sorry, 2002, I was up a year. In 2002, the scene where Kuryu, which is Mechagodzilla, drills into Rivera's chest that you see in the actual movie, even though that wasn't an actual fake, that was an actual injury that Rivera actually did suffer from. And unfortunately, even though you all thought that he was putting on a character, that he was acting, that wasn't a joke. Because unfortunately, that scene actually injured Rivera. He was weak, he was damaged, and it got to the point that he literally fell to the ground. Of course, Kuryu, you like said like, "Oh shit, I think I accidentally put the drill too hard," and so that's why they had to move Rivera and crash him into the sea in the end. So it looks like he could be killed off. Now, unfortunately, this isn't the first time Toho has killed off a Godzillasaurus. They did it to Godzilla 2, Showa. In 1985, it called Godzilla Raids Again. They basically tried to kill him off in a volcano scene. But here's the situation: they did this without Godzilla's consent. What happened was is that during the occasion, Godzilla's son, who we all know Godzilla has a son, actually was lonely. He was on Sogel Monster Island all alone while his father was out, in Tokyo doing all these movies and everything else. He could never see him. And it got to the point that Godzilla says, I have to stop acting. I need to start spending more time with my child. I can't be over here all the time in Japan. So he decided to talk over with Toho in order to discuss ways, look, can I take a couple of years off to spend some time with my kid? I'll come back sometime later on in the 80s, but I need at least 4 or 5 years off. Toho gave him that, but little did Godzilla know is that they didn't take this too lightly. So what happened was is that without Godzilla's consent, during the volcano scene, which I'm sure a lot of you had seen, which scared and traumatized and got many people to cry, when Godzilla screams and falls into the fire pit, Godzilla actually didn't do that, aka Showa. What happened was what really happened was that the directors told Godzilla, "Hey, can you jump into this area once the lava starts sprinkling over?" Of course, Showa's, concerned. He's like, "Why do you want me to jump in here for?" He's confused, and Japan, and they eventually told him that they convinced him to do it because they said that this is as part of the act. So Showa agreed to do it, and he jumped in. But here's the catch: when he jumped inside, he didn't make that screech that you heard in the movie. He just jumped in without saying anything. So when he jumped in, Toho let him go, to spend time with his son. Now, you would think that's a decent thing for them to do, right? Wrong. On Monster Island, Godzilla was constantly getting messages, like to his son, like saying, "I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Your dad died." It's like, I miss Godzilla so much, and he's like, "Rest in peace, Showa." And media actually got scared about this, and he showed it to Showa, and Showa's like confused. He's like, "What's going on here? Why are people crying over me?" So he eventually decides to figure it out, and eventually somebody who is in his heart actually believed that Showa was still alive somewhere, decided to send a little bit of the footage that happened in Godzilla Raids Again. Showa flipped out when he saw that footage. And it got to the point, and now it made all kinds of sense on why everybody was crying over him. because they thought that he got killed in the volcano. And to add insult to injury, he did not make any sounds when he jumped inside. Toho completely edited that stuff to make it look like Godzilla was screaming in terror and agony as he was jumping in to the volcano while slowing the video down. Needless to say, Showa flipped shit on Toho. Just, snapping like, "What the hell are you doing? You have people crying over me? Like, what is this all about?" And but not before going public and saying, "Everybody, I'm okay. Don't listen to that garbage." That did not really happen in the actual scene. And Godzilla even countered that by putting the original scene where he actually jumped in without saying anything. Thank God that cleared everybody's mind, and they were able to smile and be happy knowing that the king of the monsters was still alive. But unfortunately, this led to Godzilla saying, "Fuck Toho, I am not working with these people again. Because if they could do this shit just because I want to spend time with my son, there's no telling what else they're gonna do next." And since then, he's not been seen on the set since. 1985 was the last time that Godzilla was on set. And that's basically when, and unfortunately, this would also occur with Israel too. And no, I'm not talking about the country. I'm talking about the Heisei Godzilla. Israel, unfortunately, had a similar fate. In 1995, when Israel was actually playing as Burning Godzilla, he was actually wearing, and in case all of you who don't know what Burning Godzilla is, I'll happily show it to you, but I'm sure many of you do. Burning Godzilla was basically supposed to be Godzilla on death row. And now Israel didn't know this at the time, but during the occasion, Burning Godzilla was pretty much this. You seen how he's burning everywhere with the orange and the heat? This was Israel in 1995, but don't be fooled. He was actually wearing an actual suit at the time. Yeah, he was wearing a Godzilla suit over his actual Godzilla body, which was very hard for which was actually back then in 1995. Israel complained that it was very hard to do. During the occasion, when filming was actually being conducted, Israel had to constantly take breaks after breaks after breaks after 4 hours of filming because the heat of the suit was too much for his scaly skin. But when Toho realized that the more breaks Israel took from this problem, the more time they were wasting. So they eventually had to improvise. Now instead of just continuing to wait Israel out and let him let his body cool off so he could actually put that fiery suit back on again and continue where the scene left off, they instead hired an actual human actor to go inside the scene, to go inside the suit, which was an actual which was an actual Israel replica of Israel that looked identical to him. Unfortunately, by the time Israel returned, saying, "All right, guys, I'm all cooled off. Let's put that suit back on and we'll continue the fight scene." Toho says, "We don't really need you now. We've already taken care of it, but you can help us by standing over there in the smoke while the camera moves toward you." Of course, Israel's confused. He's like, understand. He's like asking, he's like, "Wait a second, we still didn't even pass the fight scene yet." Israel's like, "What the heck's going on here?" So eventually, he obliges and he does it anyway. A couple of months later, after the release of Godzilla vs. Destroyer, same thing that happened to Showa in Godzilla Raids Again happened to Israel. So many people were crying, putting tributes next to the Great Lakes where Chicago was, because Israel actually resided in the Great Lakes in Chicago. Unfortunately, during that occasion, Israel eventually found out what happened to him. While he was, resting and letting his body cool off to put the suit on, they killed him off in Godzilla versus the Destroyer by having a meltdown. And the whole point of him standing in the actual mist was supposed to represent his son. Just like Showa, Israel lost his shit. He lost his shit. Of course, he went publicly and says, I'm all right, everybody. I did not melt. Do not believe that garbage. And after that, then came Rivera. The same thing happened with Rivera, happened as well. The only difference is that Rivera's incident was a lot more severe because his injury was actually caught on camera. So Godzilla team was not really treated very well by Toho. The only human that actually gave a damn about these monsters was Tomoyuki Tanaka, the creator of Godzilla himself. These monsters looked at Tomoyuki Tanaka as a dad, even though none of them were actually siblings. But as the occasions began, eventually Tomoyuki Tanaka's time came and he tragically passed away. Which I'm not gonna lie, it was a very dark day for Godzilla team. It really was. Since then, Rivera, Israel, and Shella have been just, defending, Earth as best as they can. Now, they didn't have to do this. Just don't forget, they're not on a TV set, they're not on the big screen. They don't have to do this. But Earth at the time was vulnerable to a multiple of alien invasions. As a matter of fact, majority of the Toho films were actually filmed based off of the real life events where Godzilla team actually had to stop them. During the first monstrous war that occurred in the 80s, that was one of the events that led to basically the many films that would go on from Space Godzilla to Biollante. Another one was the second monstrous war that took place in the 2000s. Now that one was a little short, and that led to the inspiration of Final Wars. Final Wars was the last movie that Showa took part in. Now you're probably saying, wait a second, why was Showa old in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but yet he's young again in the 2000s? That doesn't make any sense. And you're correct. That doesn't make any sense. But what happened was is that Showa and Godzilla sources, they are able to change their ages once in a while. They're not like humans that, once you become an age, you're stuck like that and you keep going up and up and up. Sometimes as a Godzilla source, you could usually, change your age. But that doesn't happen on occasions. Like sometimes if you change your age, like if a Godzilla would have changed, like let's say he's 60 now and he turns back to 40 within a week, it'll be a whole decade by the time he could change back to normal. So it's not permanent. So basically, the only time it ever became permanent was when Godzilla team ended up in Equestria, which was supposed to be where New Godzilla team was supposed to kick up. Basically, they went when Godzilla team was first showed up in Equestria in 2039. Rivera, Israel, Kuryu, and Mecha King Ghidorah, they were basically they were basically old at that time period. And now, when they reached Equestria, their ages reversed. Israel was like 21, Rivera was 32, and Godzilla basically was 35. So basically, they were young again because Equestria, there are hardly any elderly things in Equestria. And even though there are elderly ponies, they never die. They're immortal because of the magic of Equestria. The same thing, and because Godzilla team is out of universe, it messes their ages up. So unfortunately, when they showed up in Equestria, it kind of screwed up their age range. Now they're stuck young forever. Even if they even if they would have returned back to the humans, to the human realm, which they do on some occasions, they're going to remain young. They're never going to age again because the magic of Equestria screwed up their aging. So unfortunately, that's kind of how they showed up. Space Godzilla zapped them there. Well, that was according to Legendary Werewolf 206's idea at the time. But unfortunately, like I stated, things haven't been going well because when they first showed up at because when they first showed up pretty much at Equestria, they were trying to get the fuck out as best as they could. They did not want to stay. So the best thing that they could do is that they have to one, they have to actually work together with the main six, to find a way to get back. But as the years progressed, the main six didn't want them to leave. They wanted them to stay with them. Now, here's where it gets tragic. During the time of 2039, the main six started to receive dreams. Each and every one of them, from Twilight Sparkle all the way to Pinkie Pie. They were starting to receive odd looking nightmares about each member of Godzilla team, and they couldn't understand why. And basically, here's where it gets sad. Here's where it gets tragic. What they didn't know at the time is that they were witnessing a prophecy. And that Godzilla team, each and every one of the members were going to perish soon. And that those nightmares were like a warning to were like revealing to the girls of the prophecy. Eventually, at first, the girls did not believe this. Twilight Sparkle, Rainbow, Rarity, Rainbow. I said Rainbow, excuse me. But you know what I mean. The main six didn't believe it at first. But then it actually started to become a reality. Mandy, who is, believe it or not, the Mandy from Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, I'm not talking about when she was a child. She was actually an adult in this. As a matter of fact, I'm talking about the Mandy from Bleedman's comics called Grim Tales from Down Below. If you don't know what that is, look it up and you'll know which Mandy that it was. But during that occasion, Mandy actually was basically her job was actually was like a very maternal figure toward the Cutie Mark Crusaders. Back then they didn't have their cutie marks. So tragically, during the occasion, a large beast came in. Now I forgot the name of it. This was many years ago. I forgot what it was called, but a large beast came in and attacked the Cutie Mark Crusaders. They were able to escape, but Mandy was able to, while Mandy was fighting it off. But here's where the sad part comes in. The Cutie Mark Crusaders were able to escape unscathed, but Mandy lost her life. It was even stated that at the end, the Cutie Mark Crusaders could actually hear Mandy's screams before she was being devoured. She died in 2039. No, excuse me, 2036. Unfortunately, that was the first, and I repeat, the first official evidence of the prophecy. As soon as Mandy died, the main six started to take it a lot more seriously now, and they tried to do everything they could to prevent the prophecy from becoming a reality. But then in 2037, the same meltdown that supposedly killed Israel in 1995, which was, false, ended up killing Israel in real life in 2037. He was the second to die, which was a huge blow, and it broke Pinkie Pie's heart, along with Fluttershy. Then came Mecha King Ghidorah. Mecha King Ghidorah died from an unknown cause. He actually died in 2043. a decade after Israel. Then after that, Kuryu died. Kuryu was literally blown up. His head was blown up by a bomb planted inside of him from an unknown source. And all that was left of Godzilla team was Rivera and Showa. Since 2044, since the death of Kuryu, the main six had been working hard around the clock to try and protect Rivera and Showa as best as they can because they were the last ones left. Godzilla team from 6 down. Godzilla team just went from 5 down to 2. And unfortunately, the situation was not going to get any better. A year later, in 2045, a huge storm that was actually known to be rare in Equestria. It was known as the elemental storms. These elemental storms were known to be so devastating that none of the weather ponies of Equestria could control them. In fact, they are said to be so destructive that even if Princess Celestia or even an Alicorn or the strongest pony of Equestria were to get caught in one of them, it would rip the flesh from their very bodies, leaving skeletons behind. That's how powerful these storms are, to the point that even the princesses of Equestria can't survive them. Unfortunately, during the occasions when the main six and all of Equestria was working to try and protect all the ponies to be sure that they were sheltered and everything else from this storm, Rivera and Showa did not know about it. They were doing a 24-hour patrol at the time, which basically is when Godzilla team would usually fly around the world of Harmony, looking for trouble, and it would last for the whole day, for 24 hours. And then by the time they get back, they're knocked out sleeping. Unfortunately, they couldn't have done that at a worse time. The storm eventually occurred, and both Rivera and Showa ended up trapped in the ice. They were being swift around, slammed into the ground and everything else by the heavy winds. The rain that was falling on top of them was as hard as nails. It was that terrible. Twilight and Rainbow rushed over because Twilight, who was a princess at this time, tried to actually help out. They were able to save Showa, and just as Rivera was about to get in, a lightning bolt came in and zapped his back, incinerating his wings and sending him plunging to his demise into the ocean. So that was another portion of Godzilla team gone now. All that was left was Showa. As time progressed, eventually 2040, around 2046. Wait a minute, let me just make sure, because sometimes I might make mistakes. Wait a minute. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so basically what's happening is that during the time period after Rivera's demise, Showa basically was the last one. He was the last one. Every single one of them were gone. Rivera's body was never recovered either. As soon as he hit the water, they never found him. Unfortunately, this prophecy will not spare Showa either. 3 years after Rivera's death, Showa would then die himself. And basically, that was the end of the prophecy. No matter what the main six tried to do, no matter how many times they tried to protect Godzilla team, no matter how many times they tried to prevent the prophecy, they couldn't do anything. All they did was delay the inevitable to the point that eventually each and every one of them died anyway. Now, you're probably wondering what does this have to do with the project, right? Well, it has a lot to do about it actually, because here's the thing. In 2051, over 4 to 5 years after Showa's passing, an evil entity known as Dark Sparkle, I'll pull her up real quick. Dark Sparkle, who believe it or not was actually a spell that went completely wrong by Twilight Sparkle. She was created by mistake. And this is Dark Sparkle. And I'm not kidding. She looks the same as the original Twilight. And I know you can barely see the picture, but trust me, that's her. Here's another version of her, but I did not make this. This was actually made by a glorious person. I don't know where he is. Oh yeah, here it is. Well, Mixer 96. But yeah, this is actually this is Dark Sparkle in the SFM universe, and yeah, she looks pretty creepy. Dark Sparkle was one of the worst accidents to ever take place in Equestria since 2037. And unfortunately, Dark Sparkle is known to be the envious of Twilight Sparkle. She is known to be all of Twilight Sparkle's rudeness, insecurity, hatred, distaste, and pretty much, unkindness that Twilight used to be in the earlier seasons before she discovered friendship and before she showed up to Ponyville. She's rude, obnoxious, and a terrible, terrible girl. Unfortunately, that didn't stop her. Twilight Sparkle has destroyed Dark Sparkle twice already. Once in 2039, a second time in 2051. The reason why she destroyed her in 2051 was because it was actually Dark Sparkle who was responsible for bringing Godzilla team back from the dead. No joke. She actually brought each and every one of Godzilla team back from the dead. The only person she never brought back to the dead and brought back to life was Mandy. Now you're probably saying, why didn't she bring the only female of Godzilla back? And unfortunately, this is where it gets a little sexist on Dark Sparkle's part. Mandy was a female, and Dark Sparkle didn't want competition. So she refused Mandy. So that's right. Unfortunately, she's still dead. Now, will Mandy ever be brought back to life? It's unknown. But right now, most of the male members like Rivera, Israel, and Showa, Kuryu, and Mecha King Ghidorah are all back. But the situation is bad because they are under the spell of Dark Sparkle, which is her again. Unfortunately, Dark Sparkle didn't even stop there. She was actually able, this broad was actually able to bring Godzilla team back to their home realm in 2051 to attack it. This was the first time ever that Dark Sparkle has ever showed up in the human realm. And during that attack, she actually turned Godzilla team to this. Look at this right here. This is not a joke. This was what Godzilla team became. Rivera is all the way on the right. It's all the way on the right. You got Showa that looks like he has a Japanese samurai suit on. You got Israel in the center. You got Mecha King Ghidorah in the center left, and you got Kuryu on the left. This is what Godzilla team was turned into. They were turned into her minions. So because of this problem, the main six actually had to go on the offensive. They actually had to attack the monsters they loved. And this is exactly what Dark Sparkle wanted. She actually created a spell on Godzilla team stating that the only way she could be destroyed is if Godzilla team gets destroyed. Meaning that the main six would have to kill Godzilla team themselves to destroy Dark Sparkle. Fortunately, Twilight Sparkle was able to find a gap in that spell and was able to erase it. Because in the end, look what happened to Dark Sparkle. In the end, basically, when she went to this is what happened to Dark Sparkle in the end. Look at this. The real Twilight's over there, Dark Sparkle's over here. During a heavy duel near Canterlot, which you can see in the background, Dark Dark Sparkle was zapped in the back to the point that her wings would eventually be incinerated, and she would eventually plunge down to her demise. This was the second time she died. Godzilla team was free of the spell, but this isn't the only thing. As a matter of fact, let me show you the actual attack that Dark Sparkle actually was able to have Godzilla team do during the occasion. This actually happened in Canterlot. Take a look for yourself because it was outrageous. I just gotta make sure that it's not here. Give me nope, it's on these. Well, that's funny. I thought I actually had it. Give me a second, guys. I just gotta see. I have to find it. It looks like, but I know I should have it. I should definitely have it. Let's see if the fandom still has it. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is the picture right here. This is a picture, and yes, I did make this myself. This is a picture of when Godzilla team attacked Equestria. You can see Dark Sparkle right here on Rivera's head. But look what's coming at her. It was actually claimed that but from witnesses of this entire engagement that they've never seen the Princess of Magic this angry before. So you could actually see, Mecha King Ghidorah back there. You could actually see that he actually had something on his back. It was known as an electric generator, which actually managed to make him shoot purple type lightning bolts, ones that were actually known to be a lot more destructive than his original yellow to green ones. So as you can see in that picture, things were tight. This was the 2051 disaster in a nutshell. Now, fortunately, like I said, good news happened because Dark Sparkle was defeated. However, I fear that that wasn't the end of her. Because tragically, it was not. For you see, after Dark Sparkle was defeated, before the whole 2051 incident occurred, and after Dark Sparkle brought Godzilla team back to Equestria from the human realm, she created something. She created Shadow Rainbow Dash. Now I know you're probably saying, and who is Shadow Rainbow Dash? None other than the evil Rainbow Dash of the show that you all know. This one. That's right. This Rainbow Dash returned. This Rainbow Dash actually came back. Only this time, it's not the original Rainbow. So tragically, even though Dark Twilight Sparkle was eliminated, there was still a remnant of her left, and that was through evil Rainbow Dash right here. So basically, unfortunately, in order to try and see if she could get revenge, she came up with an idea to resurrect her mother. And who is her mother? Dark Sparkle. Because just like Twilight Sparkle, who hatched Spike, who's a mother to Spike, and a lot of people try to say, well, Spike isn't Spike her adopted brother? No. You would have to be mentally brain dead to believe that. Because one, Twilight Sparkle hatched Spike. So calling Spike Twilight Sparkle's adopted brother would be pretty much the equivalent of saying that I get it's pretty much the equivalent of saying Twilight gave birth to her brother. That doesn't make sense. And everybody with a brain cell knows that that Spike is not Twilight's brother, but adopted son because in the actual series it speaks for itself. Twilight's attitude towards Spike is not sister, it's mother. And everybody knows that. So this Twilight, and Spike being siblings is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's a mother and son thing because Twilight Sparkle has a maternal side that's very strong, even in the beginning. So basically, even when Pinkie Pie tried, was having trouble with her, nieces or whatever they were, I forgot what they were, but Twilight was immediately Twilight was immediately the first one to try and give her help. Why? She's raising Spike. She's a mom already. She knows that. So she knows how kids act. A sister doesn't do that. So it's like I stated, you have to be mentally brain dead to call Twilight a sister. Now, yeah, Spike will. Now, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There are times in the episode that Spike could actually be a little bit of a jackass toward Twilight because there are times that there was even a scene in the actual episode. I forgot where it was, but I think it was actually said when Spike was actually being woken up by Twilight, and he said, "Mommy," but then when he sees Spike, and then he realized that Twilight's having one of her episodes again, then he says, "You're not mommy," and then just goes back to bed. Yeah, there are times that Spike does do that, but in reality, good thing Twilight doesn't really pay attention to that stuff. But in reality, we all know Twilight is Spike's adopted mother. We know that for a fact. But yeah, continuing. The same way that the same way that Twilight, hatched Spike, became the mother to Spike, is the same way that Dark Sparkle created Shadow Rainbow Dash. Now, basically, Shadow Rainbow Dash is basically Spike in female form and pony form. The only difference is that she has the personality of original Rainbow Dash, but is a lot more hostile and is also a lot more destructive than the original Rainbow Dash. However, she could also be very manipulative. So basically, this is where the project comes in. 15 years after Dark Sparkle's second defeat in 2051, we're now in the year 2066. So what happened is that during this occasion, Shadow Rainbow Dash was able to remember the exact location of a ship known as the Poseidon. Now, the Poseidon was a human ship that was once in the human realm. It was set to be commissioned in 2051, but it never got around to it because 2051, on the very day where we're supposed to be commissioned, Dark Sparkle unleashed Godzilla team on the human realm at that time. And having to learn from the mistakes from 2051, and no, excuse me, having to learn from the mistakes of 2039, she decided that it would be best to hide Godzilla team on a ship because she knew that the main six would try to search all over Equestria for them. But how are they going to find them if they're nowhere on land? If they're in the middle of the sea, they're never going to find. They will never look there. And that's the thing. The ponies of Equestria cannot swim unless they're mare ponies. And even in the My Little Pony movie, Twilight Sparkle and the Rainbow Dash and the other main six could not swim. They needed to be mare ponies, otherwise they would have drowned in the ocean. They can't swim. They have to be mare ponies, otherwise they're screwed. And that was actually her big idea. Now, Godzilla team actually took interest in the Poseidon, even when they were warped in her mind. And she decided to send that giant super cruise ship from the human world all the way to Equestria. And she was actually able to do that, but she had no idea that by teleporting the Poseidon, she was also teleporting a shipwreck that was known as the Royal, that was under the Poseidon. It sunk at some point at an unknown time. Now, whether it was in the 2040s or in the 2030s, nobody knows. But judging by the condition of the wreck, as you can actually see right here, I'll pull it up now. The SS Royal, which believe it or not, is actually an actual ship from SFM. Now, the SS Royal was actually a tanker ship. The problem with this tanker ship is that it literally sunk. Nobody knows how it happened, but this is the tanker ship right here. This is the SS Royal. Now, unfortunately, it's not in the human realm anymore. It was zapped along with the Poseidon in Equestria. This is the Poseidon. Now, I know what you all are thinking. Hey, I've seen that ship in the movie in 2006, right? Does a rogue wave sink it? Does it capsize? Does it sink like it does in the movie or in the book? No. As a matter of fact, this is the only area where Poseidon lives. It doesn't sink. But basically this whole ship that you see is Godzilla team's permanent home now. Since they can't live on the mainland anymore, they basically chose this old basically chose their original home, which was actually Poseidon. Now, Poseidon, you're probably saying, how could several giant monsters fit in this ship? It's not possible. And you're right, it's not possible. But unfortunately, Dark Sparkle actually was able to command magic. This whole ship right here that you see, just because it looks like a cruise ship on the outside, don't be fooled. Once you get inside this thing, this is like a floating planet because the hallways are filled with portals and realms to other dimensions within the ship. And that's because of all the dark magic that was brought into this vessel to the point that if you were to actually enter the ship, it looks like you're pretty much like the size of an ant because the whole ship is large in the inside. So basically, you're probably saying, what does the ship have to do with the idea? Well, it has a lot to do with the idea. In fact, Vengeance of Darkness, which is the name of this project, actually is set in this ship. Vengeance and Darkness is actually basically my latest idea in my my third attempt to bring back Godzilla team. Now I already know I can never use the movie scenes anymore. I can't use, My Little Pony footage. I'll probably get, you know, bounced by copyright strikes. But I can use SFM. But I can't use SFM because learning the software is literally impossible. The best thing that I could do is try to get some help with the series. I could provide, voices. I could provide pictures. I could provide, a script. I could provide a lot of things for the people to help, but I just need somebody to animate in my place. And so far, we've been searching left and right to try and find an animator for SFM. Now, this if push comes to shove that this cannot be made on SFM, we could try another form of animation, like maybe 2D, like maybe 2D animation or something like that. But 2D animation, in my opinion, I think would be a little too much. And it's also going to probably be a little too stressful. But I'll be willing to do anything if SFM, Source Filmmaker, doesn't work. But now on to the story. Basically, Shadow Rainbow Dash was able to sneak aboard the ship, and with the use of a special type of device that actually makes a large ear piercing noise that's powerful enough to be, dangerous to, any giant monsters, she was actually able to immediately defeat Godzilla team without them even having a chance to fight because of the ear piercing noises. And to add insult to injury, this accident took place on November 3rd on Godzilla's, aka Showa's 112th birthday. That's right. In 2066, Godzilla would have been 112 years old. Unfortunately, during the last occasions, Godzilla team was literally held as a prisoner within their own home, within their own ship. Fortunately, Scootaloo, who was a teenager at this time period, because remember it's 2066, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders are now grown into teenagers at this point. However, the main six, like Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Fluttershy, they're still the same age. And the reason why they're still the same age is because, like I stated, once a pony reaches adulthood in Equestria, they never age. They remain the same for all eternity unless Lauren Foss tells them they age. So yeah, that's basically gonna be the so basically that's the situation. So Twilight Sparkle is still pretty much very young in this whole thing. But during the time period, unlike in the original show where Twilight Sparkle becomes the ruler of Equestria, like I stated, nobody liked the end of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So that never happened in here. Princess Celestia and Princess Luna are still running Equestria. Twilight Sparkle is still and it was actually stated that Twilight Sparkle actually states in this project that she could have ran Equestria on her own, but she declined the offer and chose to remain in Ponyville. So basically, it's a good thing she did that too because all this shit, whatever. Because with all this shit that's happening now, it could have been a disaster if she was in Equestria. So during the occasions, before all this shit went down, Twilight Sparkle was given an invite in the mail. And, all the main six was invited to join Godzilla team on Showa's birthday on the Poseidon, which, believe it or not, would be the first time they would ever board a human vehicle. Now, back then, they didn't know what Poseidon was. Remember, this is Equestria, where Greek mythology doesn't exist. So they don't know anything about human mythology or anything else. But during that occasion, basically what happened was is that during when they arrived in the Poseidon, they arrived to a strange vibe. It was like an empty ship, like a ghost ship. And the whole sky was gray. I mean, it was the same thing that you see in this photo right here. The ship was literally adrift. There was nobody around. And push comes to shove, Twilight Sparkle eventually finds out that Scootaloo, who survived the whole ordeal, was able to witness the rebirth of Dark Sparkle. And this is where this version comes in. Now, I'm not so sure if we're going to use this version or not, but I think we will. It depends on the situation and circumstances. But if we do, shout out to this creator because you did a great job. Because this would be a perfect Dark Sparkle. But if we're gonna try and do this, basically what happens in this project is that this is the first time ever that the main six actually have to fight, Dark Sparkle and an actual daughter of hers. To make matters worse is that they were actually planning on creating other versions of the main six, evil versions of the main six. So this is where it gets out of hand. It basically the main six. The only way they could actually save Godzilla team is they would have to gather power gems. Power gems were actually known as the most powerful gems in Equestria, not because of their equestrian origin, but because they're from the human realm. So basically, this whole disaster showed Equestria how powerful the human realm could actually be. So yeah. So basically, at that time period, the main six would have had to move through the whole ship, entering various portals, you know, changing from pony to human, pony to human, pony to human. It was a very, very big it was a very big deal. And they had to fight a lot of assholes in their way, including bosses, in order to get the gems. As time progressed, they were able to advance through. They were actually able to go inside and unlock a portion that was known as Mothra's Sanctuary. Now, Mothra's Sanctuary was actually known as to be in a ballroom within the rear of the ship. And basically, every time that the main six would get like a certain number of power gems, hang on, I'll bring you up the ship's schematics. But be in mind, these schematics are just a rough draft. We are still trying to work on an actual decent version, but I'll show you basically everything what the ship is in. So basically, this is where the whole thing starts. If you could see right here where my mouse is, the main deck is where the main six first show. Then they enter the upper hallway, which is around here. It's shaped as a T with one area reaching for the atrium, which is this area, which is the central hub of where everything is. But on this side, it's a dead end. But there is, believe it or not, fun fact, Mandy actually makes a cameo appearance here in an actual picture, in a portrait. Which, believe it or not, if you actually get a certain amount of, I believe, 16 power gems, you could actually jump into this portrait and it takes you all the way to the lower hallway right here, where you could actually enter three areas of the ship in order to receive power gems. Now, keep in mind, you're going to end up in possibly, the captain's quarters, the bridge, and everything else of the Poseidon in order to get these three power crystals. But once you get these power gems, you basically seal this area off. Once you get all three power gems, the lower hallway that you see here is going to never be accessible again. But during that occasion, once you get that, you enter here, which is the atrium. Now, once you enter the atrium, you're going to actually see a large portrait of Dark Sparkle right here in the center. And believe it or not, Dark Sparkle will not be like what you think of. She's actually pretty much basically a human in this portrait right here. Now, unfortunately, the odds of me finding a person to actually draw a portrait of Twilight as a human is slim to none. But basically, if you act, I could describe her to the best of my abilities. She's basically, like the equestrian girls versions of Twilight Sparkle, only she has, purple dark, glowing eyes. She's wearing what appears to be a dark purple princess gown, and you see her like putting, long dark, long black gloves on her hands. And she has like what appears to be, like a evil crown on her head. So that's pretty much her on in right here. So basically, once you reach this area here, which is Mothra Sanctuary, it's around here, you actually are able to unleash the power of friendship, of love and friendship, which basically could go up. It shoots up from nuts. Oh, excuse me, from something that's known as the Glory Stone. It's located like around this area right here. And once it shoots up, it moves all the way and it could actually open up areas like Showa's Temple, which is Godzilla's home realm right here on the Poseidon, where you could actually enter Godzilla's home realm and actually start getting more and more power gems to unlock other areas throughout the ship. And as you continue going through this area, you can actually find hidden areas around the ship too. Like around this area here is the ship's study hall. If you actually were to keep the main six like idle for a couple of times, Twilight Sparkle will actually complement all the books, and that she might return back to the to the Poseidon to learn more about human culture. There's another room on this side here that's also hidden. You could only enter through a ventilation shaft. But over here would be a secret Easter egg room. And basically what I mean by Easter egg room is if you actually go in there, you'll actually see a couple of, pictures of Tomoyoki Tanaka, some from Godzilla. You'll even see a picture of Lauren Faust. And if you actually reach this area, if you remain idle for a certain amount of time, Twilight would actually Rainbow Dash will actually say, "Who are these characters?" And Twilight will just shrug her princess shoulders. She's not gonna know. But basically, that's the whole situation. Is that during this whole event called Vengeance of Darkness, it's all about it's trying to rescue Godzilla team from the walls of their own ship and defeat Dark Sparkle and Dark Shadow and excuse me and Shadow Rainbow Dash in order to try to end this disaster, so they could properly celebrate Godzilla's 112th birthday. Now, this is basically my whole idea for what I have planned. And so far, there's a little bit of artwork to back it up. I could give you some prime examples right now. For an example, here's the first one that I have so far. I already showed you it, but that's actually the Royal, which, believe it or not, the SS Royal Shipwreck actually takes a big, big turn in this actual event because there are power gems hidden in this thing. So you're gonna add, so at some point in the story, the main six actually has to swim down from the Poseidon and end up, in this area to get the power gems. Here's another image where you actually see Rivera looking at the royal from within the window of the Poseidon. He's looking at it through the Millennium Harbor area, which is located below the waterline of the Poseidon. But you could actually see that the water of the Sea of the Unknown, which is the name of the ocean where the Poseidon is located, you could actually see that the Sea of Unknown is not so deep. As a matter of fact, it's actually stated to be so freaking shallow that the Poseidon's bottom is like, I think, about 40. It's about 15 feet from the ocean floor. So it's basically very, very shallow, as you could tell right here, because you could see Rivera, who's inside the Poseidon. You could see him looking at the SS Royal, which is right here. So you can see that the ship is not so far away from the ocean floor. Now comes the final artwork that I have so far. Unfortunately, I don't got any more because I'm still trying to come up with ways to do this. But the second artwork that I have is basically this one right here. Where is it? Here it is. And this is the main artwork that's supposed to be the cover for the actual storyline. And basically, you could see Godzilla team right here. They're all possessed again. You could see Shadow Rainbow Dash over here, and you could see Dark Twilight Sparkle over there, back from the dead. So basically, this is basically pretty much, and you also, oh yes, and you can see the Poseidon in the background. But basically, this is the whole artwork right here. And here's the actual with the text. So yeah, as you can all see, I actually need some help. So I hope that if everyone takes the time to watch this, they could probably, message me on either Instagram or probably just even comment on this video or excuse me, this live stream. And they could try to and I would be happy to talk with them because so far I got like one person who's willing to help out. I'll keep her name private, but she's a celebrity on TikTok. But at the time period, I will try to continue to, because like I stated, the Wikia page is still not done yet. I still got a couple of rooms to finish, but I'm sure that all of you who decided to watch this, I would like to thank you all for taking your time to hear me out and to talk about my first flagship series before the Loud House came into existence. And I was thinking of bringing it back again. I mean, I love Loud House, but there's only so much I can do the same thing over and over and over again. So I sometimes I gotta change once in a while. Now, episode 20, in case you all are wondering, it's doing well. We're at 89%. Uh, it should be released at some time, maybe next week or around in April. So we'll have to wait and see from then. But I'd like to thank you all for sitting through with me with this. I'm sorry if I kept you here for over an hour and 27 minutes, but I'm telling you that this was actually for the good because I really need some help. I can't do source filmmaker. I'm not that skilled with it. And I have tried to look at tutorials. They take too long and it gets more of a brain headache and a migraine than you do learning it. So if anybody's willing to help me out make this project and make this thing become a reality, they can message me on TikTok on Instagram or they can message me here. So thank you all for listening. And this is 2091 Rivera Israel signing off.